Because Whitney's videotaping us. Any questions before we start? We are on what? We gotta be getting close.
26.
And you guys take a minute to read 26, because I'm not reading 26 out loud. It's the wordiest thing ever. This is the one part of the purchase agreement that we didn't come up with. After you read it, you can see that an attorney came up with this. This is just covering everybody, blaming everybody, doing everything. So take a second to read it. When you get a sentence that's four lines long, you know it's wordy. Just a couple of things on this. Basically, if it's not written anywhere, doesn't matter. I mean, you've got, everything needs to be written into this contract, into this purchase agreement. It also goes on to say what you as agents and we as brokers are acting as or not acting as. We're not appraisers, builders, accountants, environmentalists, inspections, lawyers. And then the last part is, you guys realize the difference between void and voidable? You want to say anything here?
Voidable has the potential to be voided.
Correct. And void means it's gone. Okay? If there's a line in something that is void or not correct, does that kill the whole purchase agreement?
If something is void?
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's correct. And if you read the last sentence here, it's exactly the last one. Should any term or condition here be deemed void or unenforceable, the remaining provisions of this agreement shall remain in full force and effect. So in other words, if something was illegal or written incorrectly, that doesn't kill the whole deal. It kills that paragraph. If you don't have a purchase agreement, there's one back there. We clear on that one? Clear as mud? You can see that 26 gets pretty wordy. Again, if you read this thing line by line to your client, good luck ever getting the thing signed. Okay? You give them that paragraph. And that's why when you're dealing with the purchase agreement, when should the first time they see the purchase agreement be?
Consultation.
In your buyer's consultation, absolutely. So they can look at it, and if they have questions, tell them. If you're going to have an attorney review your paperwork, now is the time to do it, not when you're writing the offer. Because the attorney should be looking at really this part of the purchase agreement, not the terms and conditions, right? The attorney doesn't know anything about the terms and conditions. They just want to know, is this thing written properly? Give it to them up front. The second part of that is, if you give it to them at the time you're writing an offer and say, hey, and they say, well, I want my attorney to review it, what potentially may happen? While they're having their attorney review it, guess what might happen? They're not getting the house. Because somebody else is writing an offer without an attorney reviewing it, and you're going to get left in the dust. So if they want an attorney to review their paperwork, do it up front. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Governing law. What state do we live in? Where are we doing business? So what laws do you think should we be following? Yeah, exactly. Michigan. The parties hereto expressly agree that the terms and conditions hereof and subsequent performance hereunder shall be construed and controlled by the laws of what? State of Michigan. Now, it's actually, if you think about it, that's the state of Michigan and
Counties.
no, the U.S. I mean, if you think about it, because isn't, and I don't know if it's necessarily a law, but you're talking about federal lead-based paint. That's a federal form. I think it's actually a law at that point. So you've got to, I mean, that's probably the only one, but civil rights, you guys know that there's different rules and regulations from the state and the federal, right? If there's a contradiction, and I'm not sure I'm going to say this right, but if there's a contradiction, what supersedes?
Federal.
Are you sure on that?
No.
Because I'm not sure on that.
No.
What I was going to say is, the simple answer to me is this, I don't know, it's the stronger of the two. Does that make sense? That you've got, if Michigan laws are stronger than the federal laws, you know, I say stronger, those are the ones I think that are going to win out.
Oh, okay, I get you. Whichever one is more stringent.
Yeah. Yeah. But if someone wants to do some homework on that, Dave, and let me know. Let me know on that one, okay? Legal contract. What's different on this paragraph?
It's all in caps.
Why?
Important.
Yes. This is a legal document, and all parties hereto are advised to consult with an attorney prior to executing this agreement to protect their interests. The listing and selling brokers are not attorneys and have not given legal advice in reference to this agreement. Time is of the essence and shall be considered as part of the consideration of offer and acceptance. What we're saying is, if you want an attorney, go ahead and have an attorney. But you better make sure that the attorney is doing their thing quickly. You know, if somebody's going to ask you, should I have an attorney review this? What's your answer? You do have to answer that question. You can't just look at them. If you feel comfortable with it, you know, go ahead and do it. Well, what would you recommend? My answer is very simple. I mean, this has been reviewed by our attorneys, and it's pretty nondescript. But if you feel more comfortable, please go ahead and have them review it. Okay? Most of the time, I would bet you it's less than 3 or 4% attorneys review these things. And very honestly, most of the time when an attorney reviews this, is very rarely they have any questions on this. This PA has been pretty tried and true over the last 15 years. They may take out a couple things in paragraph 26. If an attorney or a client wants to take something out of the purchase agreement, what should you do?
Talk to you.
Yes, you need to talk to me about it. 99 times out of 100, I'm going to say fine. Okay? But everything in here is, would you agree, is in here for a reason? And you guys may not understand it, and the odds are they probably don't understand it. So if you come to me and I can put it in words that you can go back to your client and say, this is why it's in here, most of the time you're not going to have an issue on it. Every once in a while, do you get the buyer that thinks they knows everything and wants to change it? Yeah, but I would try to, you want to keep it in place. Because let me ask you a question. When we had this purchase agreement done, who do you think it was done for? Buyer or seller? It's really the buyer.
It protects the buyer.
Right. I mean, we're using this, and who in most cases is our client at that point?
The buyer.
The buyer. The only time it would be different would be what?
Dual agency.
A dual agency where we had both sides, right? But this was written for the buyer, so by them taking something out, they may actually be hurting themselves, as opposed to thinking they're making it better. Yeah, PA back there?
Thank you.
All right. Any questions on that? Earnest money. Anyone want to tell me what the state says as far as earnest money?
Promissory note.
Could be, which is the most useless thing in the world. When do you have to collect? What does the state say you have to collect the earnest money? Or when does it need to be deposited? Let me rephrase it.
48 hours.
Of what?
Sorry.
Of acceptance,
Yeah.
right? And acceptance means what?
Bottom line.
Maybe.
Signed purchase agreement by both sides.
Yes, and what's another term for that? Not signed, but
Fully executed.
that would be true, but what are you trying to get when you have a signed agreement? How about a meeting of the minds, right? Both sides clearly understand what the PA is. And that's why, if you write a purchase agreement and there's no changes, does it have to be bottom lined? Legally.
What do you mean by bottom line?
Turn to the last page. See where it says purchaser up top? Then it goes seller. And then down below it says purchaser. Ultimately, the purchaser is the last one to sign, and that's bottom line. Okay? Kind of a silly term, but if you look at it, that's really what it is, bottom line. If you have no changes on a purchase agreement, it does not have to be bottom line. However, I would always get it bottom line so there's no confusion. Okay? If there's the simplest change, and it could be a date, it could be anything. Once there's a change on the purchase agreement, it's basically you're starting a whole new purchase agreement, right? The counter starts a new PA. So by bottom lining it, you're making sure that all parties understand what's going on. So in reality, I would always have every purchase agreement bottom line. Now, so you have the meeting of the minds. If Jay, I am your client, and we write an offer, and we're pretty sure it's going to be accepted, and I give you the earnest money, what do you do with it?
Break it upstairs.
When?
Within 48 hours after you get it.
You guys agree with that?
Within, what do you say? Within
48 hours.
of the signed accepted deal? Or,
Yes.
I think you want to do it quicker than that, right?
I don't know. I know the answer. The idea is, do you guys know the answer? You cannot hold on to an earnest money at all. If I give you a check, even though we're negotiating, you can't hold on to it. You've got to take it and give it to Carolyn, and they can hold on to it, okay? We almost got in trouble with the state at one point. We got a warning because that's what was going on, is people were holding on to checks. And you as agents can't do that. Why do you think that is? Honestly, that's the answer. You guys can't be trusted. So you've got to make sure that, and that's why I did this purchase agreement the way it's done, and we'll talk about that. Because if you turn that thing in, Carolyn's going to say, well, give me a copy of the purchase agreement, and she's going to deposit it, even though the deal has never been done yet. All right? And this is why a lot of agents out there have a problem with our purchase agreement, because they don't understand the law. They're out there thinking, okay, I as a buyer give the agent a check, I'll just hold on to it. Agents cannot hold on to checks. So having done that or said that, we came up with 3 different options here. The broker is hereby authorized to present this offer. The deposit of blank in the form of a personal check, cashier's check, money order shall be collected by one of the following. Notice, what doesn't it say how you can put the earnest money in? Cash is not king in this case. We took over Farmington Hills Keller Williams at one point. And they were famous for taking cash for earnest money. And I would look through their records and we'd see $2,100 bills on a, Xerox, and that was their proof. The problem with cash is, I can give Dave 20, actually I gave him 19, and told him I gave him 20, right? Or I gave him 20 and Dave tells me I only gave him 19, all right? Not a good thing. Cash you do not want to deal with. Personal check, cashier's check, money order. What if it's a I'm contradicting. What's a cash deal? What does that mean?
No more.
No mortgage. But are they bringing cash to the table? No. Many, many moons ago, there were deals, and Dearborn was famous for cash and carry. People would plop down, $100,000, and why can't you do that anymore? Anything at $10,000 and more has to be traced. You have to prove where it came from. Nobody, no title company, nobody is going to handle that right now. So it's a cash deal. But what if you're doing a cash deal and it's going to close next Tuesday, which is possible. The title works already. Do you want to take a personal check for your earnest money? What?
Wouldn't even have time to clear.
Correct. So if somebody's doing a cash deal and it's going to close in the next week, you need them to bring in a money order or cashier's check. All right?
Just a quick question, and it's for myself. You get an accepted offer Saturday morning.
When should you have that in? Monday morning. Now, it says 48 hours. Does that mean 48 hours to the office? Or is that 48 hours into the bank account?
In the bank.
Right. And that's where people make mistakes. Because they'll bring it in, let's say the 48 hours is extended, even that scenario, the weekend. Let's forget it's the weekend, and we're still going to give you 2 days to get it in. So it needs to be in by the end of the banking day, Tuesday, right? Well, they bring it in 5:30 on Tuesday evening. That's not going into 1. So in theory, that's even late. Now, there's 3 options here, and I'm going to read them all, and we'll talk about them. Deposit to be collected by selling broker upon final written acceptance of this purchase offer by all parties. Deposit to be collected by selling broker within 2 banking days after satisfactory inspection. Deposit to be collected by selling broker upon purchaser signing offer to purchase. Which ones are you guys going to use? Third?
I'm using third one.
Okay. Any other answers?
Second.
You going to use the second one?
I mean, majority of the time, I'm probably going to use the third one. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
I use the second one.
Okay. I have 4 more answers I need.
I've used the second one before.
Okay.
I think they make the buyer feel more comfortable with the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do the second one.
You can,
Second.
can't you, I mean, you can put in the comments, or the additional conditions there for the second one, correct?
Well, why do you want to put it in the comments if Pete's already put it on the purchase agreement for you? And I always did my business that way, so I finally decided to put it on the purchase agreement. Now, once in a while, you'll get an agent on the other side saying, well, this is ridiculous, you need to do it by this way because that's what the law says. And again, choose your battles wisely. If that's the path they want, then get it. This is okay as long as both sides agree to it, right? So, I always use the middle one, if I can, unless the other side, is being a stickler about it. So, 2 banking days after satisfactory inspection. That way, you're not collecting something that A, you have to turn in right away, and B, if the inspection doesn't go through, and you've got to wait then for the check to clear to give it back to them, right? So deposit to be collected by selling broker upon final written acceptance of the purchase offer by all parties. That one isn't bad. You're the check. If you deposit to be collected by selling broker upon purchase or signing offer to purchase, which is what a lot of sometimes people want to see, where's his earnest money? I got to see that earnest money. Agents get so hung up about earnest money. At the end of the day, you know, was it you I was just talking about earnest money? I was talking to somebody. I could care less about earnest money as a listing agent. I really could. Because, A, if they want out, they can get out during the inspection time, right? Then if they get out, if they go through it, they can still get out on a mortgage clause in most cases. So I'm not going to let it be a huge deal for me. I know who it was. It was Dean Gazowski. He had a problem where the client, they didn't have any money. All their money was coming from the sale of their home. Right? So how do you put down earnest money if you don't have it? Does that mean they're a bad buyer? Probably not. It just means they're cash strapped. So the best way to do it, I believe, is number 2. Just remember, you cannot hold on to a check. If someone gives you a check, you have to turn it in.
I like number 2 because it's no extra legwork. You're going to see them at the inspection. You don't have to make an extra drive.
That's exactly right. My problem, though, is I always forget to collect it.
Isn't there a lot of older agents though who like the third one? I mean, they'll say, "Well, I didn't see a copy of."
You're gonna get them, and I'll say, you know what? If it's really that important, till I get it for you. But the bottom line is, what does it matter until we get past the inspection if there's earnest money? Now, I'm one that wants to. What's important to me on a purchase agreement is inspection. I want that time frame as short as possible. We had one written yesterday with 10 days, 5 days to respond, and then 3 days to respond after that.
Is that from National
That's-
Realty Center?
No, it's some agent way up north, not up north, but Clarkston. 10, 5, and 3 is 18 days. That's over 2 weeks. What's more important, tightening that up or worrying about a couple $1,000 earnest money that you're never going to see if the inspection goes south anyways? If you're watching out for your client's best interest, you want to minimize that inspection time. All right? The deposit shall be held by Keller Williams or shall be held by blank in accordance with the rules and regulations, Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, Board of Real Estate Broker and Salespersons, and applied to the purchase price upon consummation of sale, or will be refunded to purchaser if offer is declined by seller. So, normally who holds the deposit? The buyer's broker, right? Bank owns, it's usually the opposite, and every once in a while you'll get some goofy agent that says, we're going to hold the deposit at our office. And your client goes, well, why should we do that? Again, nothing can happen to that deposit, whether we're holding it or somebody else is holding it, until both sides sign off on it. So even if we're holding the deposit and there's a dispute over the earnest money, I can't let it go, right? You got to have mutual release, got to sign off on it. So you need to educate your client as far as, you know, whether we hold it. I'd say it's customary that we hold it, but if they want to hold it, great. It's not going to make a difference one way or another. Most of the problems I deal with in the office are on earnest money disputes, where somebody thinks they should get the money and the other side says you screwed me and I want to keep the money. And it's painful because we get stubborn people on the other side that really think they know what they're talking about, or they'll talk to an attorney who doesn't have a clue about what's real estate law, and I'll have to waste many brain cells, which I don't have anymore, to take care of those. So just make sure you're doing every step of the way. If it says you're going to apply for a mortgage within a certain time frame, guess what you better do? Apply for the mortgage. If you get denied, you need to tell the other side. Okay, I've got one now that there's an attorney involved and they're taking a hardline stance on it. Now I have to educate an attorney about our client did the right thing.
Appreciate that too.
That you getting an attorney?
Yeah.
That goes over well. So just make sure that you're doing things the right way. I know somebody else in here could talk about an earnest money deposit. That was going down a bad path, but luckily the agent was the seller, and the agent finally came to her senses, and after I kept telling her no, she just can't keep it because she's mad at our agent, which is the premise basically. And what did it take us, 3 weeks, a month?
It took over a month.
To get it back.
And the funny thing is I have a client who's looking in that area. Guess what? House comes on the market, comes up, another house by that same agent. Because like.
At least she's not an owner though.
No, she forgot this time to put in there that she's the owner.
She owns a couple.
She owns a couple of them. And I was like, but I'm skipping for something.
You know what's funny though? If I were you, I'd do the same thing. And the reason I say that is, you guys know I preach about your reputation is the most important thing. Agents that do stupid things, what do you eventually think happens? Other agents stay away from them.
Yeah, and that
Right.
wasn't the first stupid thing she did.
I wouldn't mess with her.
Yeah.
I mean, find him another house. I mean, agent last night, I was on the phone with him. He had this wacky scenario. And he goes, what would you do? I go, if it was me, I'd tell my clients to go find a different house. Because there's way too many moving parts in this, and there's no guarantee this is ever going to come together. Why do you want to get into something that there might be a 5% chance of this thing ever coming together? Walk away and find something else. All right. So you're going to hold it. You know how to follow the rules. That's a good thing. Personal checks, purchasers and knowledge, and the deposit funds must, in bold letters, be immediately available. People sometimes think, oh, it's earnest money, it's never going to get cashed. No, it gets cashed as soon as it goes into Carolyn's hands. Your clients need to know that. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. What happens if earnest money bounces the check?
Yeah, it's not good.
You're fired?
Call your customer, tell them to get here, call the other agent, because we don't have them.
You have to call the other agent immediately. Because what actually happens once that thing bounces?
Your deal's dead.
You don't have a contract. Okay? So you can handle it one of two ways. I can call up Kavita and say, oh yeah, Dave's check bounced. I'm going to get to him. I'll get to him later on today. Kavita's going to say, you're out of your mind. I'm not doing anything. You kill this deal, send over a mutual release. Or I call Dave real quick and I say, Dave, you better get your up here with a certified check in the next half an hour. Then I look at Kavita. I call her up and I say, Kavita, here's the situation. The check bounced. I've already got a new one on my way up here in the next half an hour. If it doesn't get up, I will let you know when I have it in my hands deposited. Okay? In most cases, the agent's going to say okay. If you go the other way at the beginning, there's a good chance they're going to say, you know, I'm going to kill that deal. So you better act quick. You cannot not, how's that for a double negative?
Okay.
You have to tell the other side that the check bounced. Plain and simple. You know, Carolyn's been telling me that we've had a lot more lately.
Bounce checks.
Yeah. And it's usually a miscommunication between the agent and the buyer, because the buyers think, you know, well, I got to transfer money around, and it might take me a couple of days. Well, guess what? If you're looking at buying a house, you know what you should probably do? Transfer money before you go out looking. So make sure you're communicating with the other side, or not the other side, but with your plumber. Additional conditions, what goes in there?
Weeks that your buyer wants.
Could be asking for something, seller concessions, whatever.
I do like in your contract though,
It's our contract.
well, the company's contract, number 12, where the as-is condition. Because I think we save ourselves a lot of time.
Talking
and
about,
headaches.
yeah.
Because I know Roxanne's dealing with something, roots in a pipe. And, they're both going back. They're wording it different ways in a separate addendum as is, and in both their way. It's almost like the Deflategate, they want to do
Yeah.
their way, like, guys.
And that's why your job is to take emotion out of the transaction. It really is. Because it's, if the buyers and sellers are getting emotionally charged up, that's not a good thing. And unfortunately, what I see in most of the problems that I deal with besides earnest money, if the agents would take a step back and look at it, A, from the other side, for one, and then B, say, how can we make this come together and work towards that, they'll be a heck of a lot better off. Or you get agents that, here's a can of gas, here's the match, let's just implode this whole thing because my way is the right way. And we're just gonna do this. Remember my Lazy Susan example. Win-win or no deal, right? If I put a Lazy Susan in the middle, it doesn't matter where it's gonna end up. Because everybody should be happy with the results that come that way, right? So you as agents just need to keep things on an even keel and keep working towards the goal, which is, when someone writes an offer, would you agree that the buyer wants to buy the house, the seller wants to sell the house, you want to get paid, the other side wants to get paid? If you keep that in mind, guess what's usually going to happen? You'll get the deal together. The only one that makes out when a deal falls apart usually is the inspector, because they can do another one for the client, or the appraiser, same scenario. You guys don't get paid till the deal closes. They don't get the house till the deal closes, and the seller doesn't get their money till the deal closes. So keep that in mind and quit thinking that the other side's out to screw me. All right? Additional documents attached. What's always going to be checked here? Or what's always going to be checked, I should say?
Seller's disclosure.
Seller's disclosure, lead-based paint. In RPA, the home warranty waiver should be in there. And that's it.
Would you do an FHA then?
Not unless it's an FHA deal.
Right.
But if it's an FHA addendum or FHA deal, you're going to need to put that in there, yes. All right, last page. Woohoo! Time limit. Purchaser is making this offer valid until blank PM or AM with a date or until withdrawn in writing. What do you guys put in there?
I usually talk to the agent, get an idea of how quickly they can get it back.
Dave has been through this class. That's a good answer. Someone else give me an answer.
24 hours.
Okay?
I say, yeah.
24 hours?
You know, if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday, if it's a Monday or a Tuesday, what do we, you know, I want the deal, so I'm gonna do 24 hours.
Okay. Anybody got any other answers? Leave it blank. All right, I'm going to answer all of those. What's the problem with 24 hours?
They might not get to their email. in time.
Right. So buyers or the sellers out of town. Can't get in touch with them.
Well, they can still sign it after 24, it's just your
Well,
client
if you
won't
can't
be-
present it to them, okay, what potentially happens in that scenario? Deal's already dead before you ever get a chance to present it, right? And if you put 48 hours, what would a lot of agents do?
Take other offers.
They're going to call everybody up that showed it and said, hey, I got another offer here. If you're going to do something, you better do it right now. Right? Leaving it blank. The leaving blank philosophy is 3 weeks down the road, Kavita, the agent comes back to Kavita and says, hey, you just bought a house. She's going, what house? The one on Main Street that you wrote an offer on 2 weeks ago. Right? That potentially could happen.
Say, what if you're already pending on a different property?
Right, and that's you got a problem there too. You already found a house. So I'm not going to tell you there's a right or wrong answer here. You need to know what happens in the various scenarios. Dave's answer is probably the correct one, where you call the other agent up and say, hey, I'm writing an offer. When are you going to be able to present it? And if he says, I'm gonna meet with him tonight at 5 o'clock, then I'm probably gonna tell him midnight tonight. Okay? And if you're on the other side, one of your jobs is, and two schools of thought have come out of the last 10 years. I believe if you write an offer to me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to present it. Isn't that a novel idea that I'm actually going to present the offer as soon as I get it? A lot of agents out there think that I'm going to wait a couple of days so I can accumulate more offers. And they'll defend themselves and say that they're doing what's in the best interest of their client, right? If you sit and talk with your client at the beginning and say, this is how I handle my business. If I get an offer, I'm going to present it to you right away. And it's in your best interest. You know, if it's a fair offer and it's getting you what you want, just accept the offer. Don't sit there, and if they say, well, just say, let me ask you, Dave, Mr. Seller, you're going to go buy a house, right? After we're done with this one? What do you want? How do you want to be treated when you're going to write an offer?
Like you drag their feet so I can get into a bidding war and then lose the house.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. Okay, Dave. So we can do that on this side. So if you put it in that way, what do you think most people are going to say? I want to be treated with, if I write an offer, I want to get presented, you know, I want to present it. I don't like playing games. I've been doing this for way too long. If my client gets an offer right away, you know, warn your people that usually your first offer is what? Your best offer.
You mean you're not gonna put, like, on the
Highest and
MLS?
best?
Yeah, by 6 o'clock tomorrow?
I'm not going to do that. I tell you, I just don't do that. Okay, I want to make sure that I treat everybody fair, because at the end of the day, and I think I've done for the last 20 years, 23 years, treated people fairly. Do you think that helps me when I'm dealing with clients?
No. Well, other agents too.
That's, well, when I'm dealing with my clients, okay, and Dave says, you know, I want to rate this offer on Main Street, and I can pick up the phone, and Kavita's the agent on the other side, and I've known her for the last 15 years, and I can say, Kavita, I got a great deal here, you know, great offer, you know, can we wrap this thing up tonight? What are you going to say? In most cases, yeah.
I'm gonna see what I can do for you,
Yeah. And so if you keep that relationship there, so by doing this, it pays off here, okay? If you sit there and say, I want highest and best by 6 o'clock tomorrow, and you get 10 offers, guess what? In most cases, you have how many people happy? How many agents? One? And you ticked off 9 other ones. Wouldn't you rather hear, you know what, Dave? Thanks for writing an offer, but you know what? We already accepted one a little while ago. Dave may be mad at me for a second, but he knows that, you know what? This is what happened. You know, he was the next one. And if something happens, Dave, you know what I'll do? I'll call you up.
Okay, ask you one quick thing. So
No.
going back to the accepted offer, you know, you're one of the, you know, we talked about the bank loans. If you're one of 7,
Mm-hmm.
you're number 2 in the list, you lose it. They call you, you still have to adhere to their.
Well, I don't know if it's HUD or Fannie Mae. One of them says, do you want your offer to be kept as a backup? Okay.
Okay.
Now, it was funny, that scenario, kind of that scenario over here, I did this on a house in Livonia. 2 months later, I get this email from HUD, or I think it was HUD. Your bid was accepted, and I'm thinking, I don't even remember, it's been so long, I don't even remember what house it was, or who it was. So I start looking at this, and I'm going, crap, now I remember. And you know what? They hadn't bought some. So we did do the deal, and it closed. But it was a fluke. Now, let's say if they had already...
Right.
And something like that, if you just put... If you put, yes, you want it to be kept as a backup, but something happens where you write, in most cases, you're going to be fine. You're just going to say at that point, no, I'm not. They notify you, nope, already found them another house.
So let's flip it. Let's say you didn't put that, you do find another house. So you just, I don't know if you answered that, but.
If I didn't put it as a backup,
Yeah.
they're not going to call you. Okay?
Okay.
If it's a bank owned and you're number 2 and they don't ask to be put in the, you know, in the waiting list or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
and they call you, you can just say, you know what, I already found another home. And that has happened to me actually this summer. We had one come in, and then in the meantime we found they were going back and forth, and I mean we were this close to putting the deal together. Well, now what you should do is rescind your offer once you find, you know, that you've got another deal accepted. And by rescinding it, make it an email. Our offer's no, you know, please, our offer is no longer valid. So, but I just want you guys to know when you fill that out, what you know, what the ramifications are. My favorite thing that shouldn't be on the purchase agreement. Both buyers and sellers acknowledge this is cooperative sale with blank, with a commission to be paid to Keller Williams Novi or Downtown Northville. What goes in the first line? The co-op.
Co-op.
Broker. You realize the term broker is kind of interchangeable, right? That here, if somebody was writing an offer to us, are they putting my name in there?
No.
It's the entity, correct. So that would be the other agent, the other broker company with a commission of blank to Keller Williams. Normally we'd be putting in 3%. What if they're offering out 2.5% and you put 3%?
You have to take the 2.5, don't you?
I'm asking you.
If they sign this and agree to it, they have to pay you the 3.
No, you get 2.5 from them and 0.5 from your buyer.
Look at Dave going all over the place with that one. That's good, 3 different answers. I'm not sure we could come up with a 4th. So, very honestly, if they sign it, they don't have to pay you. Right? Because where is the commission agreement? Where do you know what you're getting paid? The MLS.
Yeah.
The MLS says that our agreement is this. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I want to see something here. Go to 20. Let me read something to you. Purchasers and sellers recognize and agree that brokers and sales associates involved in this transactions are not party to this agreement. So if we're not parties to the agreement, how can commission even be on there? Who made this meeting?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that...
Somebody requires you by law to put it on there.
Well, it's funny. It was never, when I got into business, it was never on there. Then somebody put it on there, and then what do you think everybody else did? All the other lemmings, including myself, put it on there. That we need to have this on there. In reality, where it probably makes more sense, and it's not, I don't even think it's worded right, if it was a for sale by owner. Because you want to make sure you're protecting yourself with the for sale by owner. What would you normally use on a for sale by owner to make sure you get your commission?
Buyer agency agreement.
That would protect you, that the buyer would have to pay you.
Transaction.
It's called a one-party listing. And what that is you go out to the house prior to showing your client, and you review it with the client, the seller, not their client, but the seller at that point, and say, if we agree to the price and terms, you're willing to pay me X. If you don't do it prior to showing the house, and your client loves the house, are you dealing from a position of strength? You're kind of SOL, basically, because the buyer wants the house. And now you go to the seller, and the seller goes, I've already got the buyer hook, line, and sinker. You figure out how you get paid. Right? So you want to use the one-party listing beforehand. All right. By execution of this instrument, the buyer acknowledges the receipt of a copy of this agreement. So they're signing it in the presence of, with your salesperson ID. Now, normally you're witnessing that, right? One of the things I've always said, you're not parties to the agreement. What are you? You're a witness, right? Well, now, if everything's being done electronically, are you a witness?
No.
Probably aren't. You know, there might be a case, and somewhere down the line, you know what someone's going to say is, if I'm sending the email to you, and you're signing it electronically, then, you know, am I a witness? Maybe I am, I don't know. Because the only way you got that is through my email, right? And you could not have gotten it any other way. So, I don't know that you should sign this if you're not seeing them sign it. What I've been doing lately is actually just printing in my name, not even signing, just printing my name from Dot. I don't know if that helps me or hurts me. But your ID number goes there. By affixing seller's signature here too, the seller accepts this offer and acknowledges receipt of the copy hereof. So if the seller signs this, they agree to it, right? If they make changes, now let me ask you something. Can you negotiate orally if you're doing a counter?
Yeah.
Talk about with your buyer or your seller.
Well, I write an offer, you write an offer to me,
Okay.
and I'm changing the price. You could write it, you know, change it on there, right, and send it back to them. Or can you just negotiate it and say, okay, here's your counter.
Kind of depends on the other side. I gauge my feeling of, because I can't stand marking up a PA 6
So you have
times.
92 different things on it? I agree with you there.
Don't you have your power of attorney? I mean, as long
No,
as
it's
you're-
not, has nothing to do with that. Here's how I usually do it. If I presented an offer and I get a counter, Dave gets, hey, we're $5,000 apart, raise your offer $5,000. I'm gonna call Jay up and say, hey Jay, here's where we're at, here's the counter. Are you good with that? And he says yes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call you up right away and say, we're good. I'm gonna get it to you right away so you can initial it and sign it and do whatever you need to do. In the interest, now, there's agents out there that if you tell them that they're slime. I mean, we all know there's slimy agents out there that'll say, you know what? Until I have it in writing, I'm gonna keep taking offers. I remember a story many years ago when I first got into the business. A guy told me that agent thought he had a deal, verbally they'd agreed to it. He stopped to get lunch before he went back to the office to have it signed. Now this was the days before electronic signatures, right? Took him an extra hour, the guy sold it to somebody else. Now again, it's how do you want to be? I'll always tell people, I honestly am the easiest agent to deal with when I'm doing a co-op. If you tell me, if we agree to something, guess what? My word is where it's at. Unfortunately, that's not what a lot of people do. You know, so you're right, Dave, when you say you got to figure out who you're dealing with. But can you, let's say you get multiple offers, can you counter multiple offers?
Can't you only counter one at a time?
I don't know. That's one answer.
No, you can only sign one, you can counter. Well, I don't think so.
How about this side of the table, the room?
I don't know.
Well, maybe if you're doing it verbally, you could do as much as you want.
But then again, you come across as a bad agent.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't you just simply say, is this your highest and best offer?
You can't counter multiple offers. Coldwell Banker used to have this form, it was kind of goofy, but it kind of made sense, that you can send this out to everybody and say, I can't think how it was worded. We appreciate your offer. We're not in agreement to the terms. If you come to these terms, we may consider your offer. Okay? Now again, what's the problem with that? Everybody comes to that, you got them all up, and then
You piss off four
Yeah,
agents out of
right.
five.
I've never been a highest and best fan because I go back to the best thing we ever did was present your offers to the seller face to face. That's the old way, and that was outstanding because you would walk out of there with an accepted offer or a counter. And if you countered me, you know what I did before I ever left that house? I'd go on the porch, I'd call my client, they'd give me the okay or a counter. I'd go back in, tell them. The seller would say, okay, we'd scratch up the PA, would make our changes, and we were good to go, right? I would much rather, if I got 3 or 4 offers, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pick the best offer and say, okay, this is what we want. We're countering your offer and only your offer. If you come up to these terms, we're good. If you're not coming, if they don't come to the terms, guess what I'm doing? I'm going to number 2. To me, I think that's the fairest way to handle it. And when I say fairest, buyer and seller and also agent to agent. Does that make sense? Seller's foreign investment in real property, FIRPTA. Sellers affirm that they are or are not residents of the United States. The sellers are not residents of the United States, and the parties to this agreement will be bound by the FIRPTA requirements. Can non-residents or non-citizens own property? Yes, but what's the deal? There's just different tax ramifications, is what it is. So that's why that's in there. I don't think I've ever used that line. So the seller agrees to it, everything's fine. I would still bottom line the purchase agreement. In the event the seller makes any written changes in any terms and conditions of the offers presented by the purchaser, such changed terms and conditions shall constitute a counteroffer by seller to purchaser, and which shall remain valid until blank, unless earlier withdrawn in writing, and shall require acceptance by the purchaser by including each change before date and time. By execution of this instrument, the buyer acknowledges the receipt of a copy of this agreement.
I got the question. What
Yes.
if the purchaser doesn't bottom line?
But if they don't bottom line,
Yeah, but my seller has already accepted the offer.
and they're using that to get out of the deal,
I don't know.
oh. Were there any changes? There were no changes, then in theory, it's binding contract. If there were no changes, it is a binding contract. Would I always, again, this is what I'm saying though, just to clear that little confusion up, I want it bottom line. Plain and simple.
Keith,
Yes.
I know last year, I don't know if it's come up so much this year, I don't know if they curb it or what have you. Wasn't there something about the 3% and sellers only doing like, there were certain companies had houses that were paying $1 to the.
It's funny, I have not seen those lately, but yes, you're correct.
They were curbed, so they got taken care of.
I know they got it taken care of. I just don't know that those companies are doing a whole lot of business, is what my guess would be.
Because it seemed like it was like all summer or a lot last year. Now I haven't
seen it in a while. I haven't seen it all this year.
Okay.
There were some brokers out there that were plain slimy, what it was. And again, when do you think that happens? When there's more inventory or less inventory?
Less.
That's good, there were only 2 choices and you got both. It's less because if I'm controlling the inventory, guess what I can do? I can screw all you guys, right? And your clients are still gonna wanna buy that house. So, that's the bottom line. Any questions? Yes.
How about the initials at the bottom of this page?
I always miss that page, by the way, and just because I always miss those initials. Yes, it needs to be initialed.
At what point?
That's when you're writing it.
Bottom line?
No, it's just when you're writing it.
When you're writing it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it is kind of a goofy scenario there. When I'm sitting with people, I miss them. Now the good part is, since I pretty much do everything by dot loop, I don't miss those anymore. So it's already in there.
Can we go back to number 8 and start from there again?
Yes, we can. That will be the after-school program. All right?
The only thing, I screwed up once, but when you do write the purchase offer, on the counter offer where that signature is for the bottom line, you want to be sure you go and assign it to no one. So your dot loop people don't.
I do that one all the time, too.
Accidentally just sign it.
When you're filling out your offer right away at the beginning, if you just assign it right away, guess it comes up when you're writing the offer, okay? So the buyer will fill that bottom line in before the offer's ever been presented. So Dave's right, you go into assign to no one, okay? So that way it doesn't come up now, and then when you need it to be bottom line, you reassign it to the buyer. And a little tidbit here. We have both signatures on this, right, at the bottom. Back in the day, for some reason, it was, everybody assumed that you could just have, it was a husband and wife, one of them bottom line. Notice there's 2 signatures in there. So both of them need to, bottom line. Any questions? Woohoo, you guys finally finished the PA. I finally finished the PA. We did have a little 3-week break there, 2.5 or whatever it was. All right, you guys, go make some money. Go recruit agents to the office.
Hey, you know Megan passed.
I did know that, recruiting agents to the office.
Yeah.
The reason I say that profit share came out today. You guys want to know what I made?
Probably a good amount, but a smile.
Second best month ever. Last month was my second best month ever.
You
But
beat
this
your
month is my second best month ever. $4,700.
And you're buying us what, lunch? Dinner.
Maybe we'll do breakfast.
There we go.
Yeah, donuts next week.
So how'd you end up that day? Yeah.
Yeah, I got enough traffic through the home, it's just a little bit up there. And what's
Price
raised
of-
the fire unit, salary probably should be higher.